Hello everyone. Today we are focusing on Chapter 9, Collecting Primary Data Through Observation. I would like to start this chapter by asking you to imagine for a moment that you are standing quietly in a busy retail store, watching how customers interact with a new digital kiosk. What can you see that a simple survey might miss? That is the power of observation. In this session, we aren't just going to look at theories, we are going to learn how to see the world through the eyes of a researcher. We will bridge the gap between academic concepts and the messy, vibrant reality of the business world. Whether you are aiming to improve employee productivity or understand consumer behavior, the tools we discuss today will be essential in your toolkit as future business leaders. So let's begin our exploration of how we can turn everyday sites into rigorous, actionable primary data. Our roadmap for today is centered on 5 key learning outcomes. By the end of this chapter, you should be able to explain observation as a rigorous data collection method, not just a casual glance. We will distinguish between participant observation, which is deeply qualitative, and structured observation, which leans into the quantitative. One of the most critical parts of our discussion will be identifying the different roles a researcher can take from being a hidden shadow to a fully integrated team member. We will also tackle the thorny issues, data quality, ethics, and reliability. These are the pillars that ensure your research is respected and valid. Finally, we will look at how to apply these methods in real business settings. Let's start with the fundamentals. What exactly is observation in a research context? According to our textbook, it is the systematic viewing, recording, description, analysis, and interpretation of people's behavior to obtain primary data. The key word here is systematic. It isn't just watching, it is watching with a purpose and a plan. Why do we do it? Because often there is a gap between what people say they do and what they actually do. For example, a person might say they always eat a healthy breakfast, but through observation we might find they often grab a donut on the way to work. While surveys and interviews tell us what people think or what they want us to think, observation shows us the reality of their actions. There are 3 main types we need to understand. First, participant observation. This is qualitative. It's about discovering the deep meanings people attach to their actions. You aren't just counting heads. You are trying to understand the why. For instance, in a classroom setting, a researcher using participant observation might join the students in group discussions. By participating in these discussions, the researcher can understand why students choose certain topics or how they interact with one another. Second, we have structured observation. This is the quantitative side, where we record the frequencies of specific actions. For example, how many times does a customer touch a product before buying it? In a supermarket, a researcher could use structured observation to count how many times shoppers pick up a particular brand of cereal before making a purchase. Finally, we have technology-mediated observation. This has become massive in the digital age. It includes internet-mediated research, where we observe online communities and videography, where we use cameras to record movement and interaction. Think of a retail company using cameras to see how customers interact with digital kiosks. By watching the struggle, the pauses, the missed buttons, they can redesign the store for a better experience. This is the essence of observation, turning behavior into data that drives better business decisions. Now, let's zoom in on participant observation. This method is like being an undercover agent for science. In participant observation, the researcher actually enters the social world of those they are studying. You don't just watch from the sidelines. You attempt to participate in their activities, to breathe the same air, and to face the same daily challenges they do. Let's take a deeper look at the high-pressure sales team example. Suppose you're trying to understand their culture. It's not just about being on the sales floor on a Friday afternoon when targets are due. You could also join them in their pre-sales meetings. Here, you'd see how they plan their strategies, the kind of language they use to motivate each other. Maybe you'd notice that they have inside jokes that build team spirit, or how they quickly adapt their sales pitches based on the market trends discussed in the meeting. This is very important when understanding behavior in context to your research question. As we see in figure 9.1 inches your text, there are four distinct roles you might play, ranging from a complete participant whose identity is hidden to a participant as observer whose identity is fully revealed. The choice of role depends on how much you need to blend in versus how much you need to remain an objective outsider. This immersion allows you to capture the nuances of human interaction that are often lost in more rigid methods. It's about empathy as much as it is about evidence. By participating, you gain a gut feel for the environment, which provides a rich qualitative depth to your findings that is simply unachievable through other means. In the next slide, we will have a closer look at each role. Let's break down these four roles from figure 9.1, because choosing the right one is a strategic decision. First, the complete participant. In this role, you act as a full member of the group, but your identity as a researcher is hidden. You are undercover. This is powerful for studying informal networks. For example, imagine you're researching the dynamics of a small, tight-knit coffee shop staff. You get a job as a barista and blend in with the team. You'll hear how employees really talk about management in the break room, like when they whisper about the new scheduling policy during their coffee breaks. However, it raises huge ethical questions. Are you spying on people? Next is the complete observer. Here, your identity is also hidden, but you don't participate. Think of someone watching customer flow in a supermarket from a security room. You are a shadow. For instance, if you're studying how customers move through a large department store, you could sit in the security control room and observe their paths without them knowing. Then we move to the revealed identities. The observer, as participant, is known to be a researcher, but their interaction is limited. You might be observing a team meeting with everyone's consent, but you aren't contributing to the agenda. You are a guest in their world. For example, in a software development team's weekly planning meeting, you can sit in and watch how they discuss project timelines and task assignments, but you don't actively join the conversation. Finally, we have the participant as observer. This is where you fully participate and everyone knows who you are and why you are there. You might join a staff workshop to study collaboration while being open about your research goals. Say a marketing team is having a brainstorming workshop for a new product launch. You join in, contribute ideas, and at the same time observe how the team members interact and build on each other's suggestions. Each role has a trade-off. Hidden roles give you more natural behavior but create ethical dilemmas. Revealed roles are ethical and transparent, but people might change their behavior because they know they are being watched, something we call the observer effect. As a researcher, you must weigh the need for pure data against the necessity of ethical integrity. Your choice here defines the relationship you have with your subjects and the lens through which you see the data. It is a balancing act between being an insider and an outsider, between empathy and objectivity. When you are in the field, what exactly are you writing down? Participant observation generates four distinct types of data. First, primary observations. These are your raw, direct notes. If an employee greets a customer with a smile and a specific phrase, you write that down exactly as it happened. It's the who, what, and where. Second is secondary observations. These are interpretations made by others. For example, if a supervisor tells you, the staff usually gets grumpy on Mondays, you record that interpretation. It's not a fact you saw, but it's a valuable perspective from an insider. Third is experiential data. This is about you. How did the room feel? Was there tension during the sales meeting? Did you feel a sense of excitement or dread? Your own perceptions are data because they reflect the atmosphere of the environment. Finally, we have contextual data. This is the big picture, the store layout, the organizational structure, and the communication patterns. To manage all of this, I have a tip for students. Keep a field diary. This is your research Bible. And the moment write brief factual notes, the primary data. Later that evening, while it's fresh, add your secondary interpretations, your experiential reflections, and the contextual details. By combining these four types of data, you create a rich, multi-dimensional picture of the organization. You aren't just collecting dots, you are beginning to connect them into a story that explains the complex reality of the business world. Choosing which observer role to adopt isn't a random choice. It's determined by several critical factors. First and foremost, what is your research purpose and objectives? If you need to understand deep cultural secrets, you might need a more involved role. Second, consider the time devoted to the research. Being a participant as observer takes a massive amount of time because you have to build trust and integrate into the group. Third, your own status matters. Are you a full-time researcher or a part-time student doing this alongside your job? This leads directly to access. Can you actually get into the organization? Do they want a researcher hanging around? Then there are the ethical considerations. Some organizations or topics are too sensitive for hidden observation. Finally, consider your personal suitability. Are you comfortable talking to strangers? Can you blend in? If you are naturally shy, being a complete participant in a high-energy sales environment might be difficult. You need to be honest about your personality and communication skills. For example, if your research objective is to improve team morale, but you only have 2 weeks, a complete observer role might be too distant, but a complete participant role might be impossible to establish. You have to find the sweet spot where your resources, your ethics, and your personality align with the goals of your study. This decision-making process is what separates a professional researcher from a casual observer. We must be honest. Observation is a powerful tool, but it is also a fragile one. There are several threats to data quality that can ruin your research if you aren't careful. First is observer error. This happens when you misinterpret a gesture or drift away from your original focus. Perhaps you're tired and you miss a key interaction. Second is observer bias. This is a big one. We all have our own backgrounds and prejudices. If you expect a manager to be aggressive, you might interpret a firm voice as anger when it was actually confidence. Your subjective interpretation can color the data. Third is the observer effect. This is the Hawthorne effect in action. People often change their behavior the moment they know they are being watched. Imagine an HR researcher shadowing employees to study productivity. The employees will likely work harder, take fewer breaks, and be more polite just because the researcher is there. The data you get isn't the normal reality, it's a performance. To combat these, you need to be self-aware. You need to use techniques like triangulation, comparing your observations with other data sources like surveys or documents. You must constantly ask yourself, am I seeing what is really there, or am I seeing what I want to see? Reliability and validity in observation aren't guaranteed. They are earned through rigorous self-discipline and a constant commitment to objectivity. Acknowledging these pitfalls is the first step toward overcoming them and producing research that is truly credible. To bring all of this to life, let's look at Case 9, Observing Work-Life Balance in My Own Organization. Meet Amanda. She is an HR manager in a medium-sized consulting firm. On paper, her company was great. They had flexible hours and remote work policies, but Amanda had a gut feeling that the reality was different. To find out, she didn't just send out a survey. She became a participant as observer. For 6 months, she immersed herself. She attended every meeting, chatted with colleagues during coffee breaks, and quietly noted how people actually interacted. She kept a detailed field diary, recording not just what she saw, but how she felt. What did she find? The reality was startling. Despite the official flexible policy, there was a hidden culture of presenteeism. Managers subtly rewarded those who stayed late. Employees who left on time to pick up their kids felt a crushing sense of guilt. The always on culture was silently killing the official policy. Amanda also had to grapple with her own role. She felt the tension of being both a manager who wanted the company to succeed and a researcher who needed to see the truth. She realized her very presence could shape how her colleagues behaved. This case perfectly illustrates the power of observation to uncover the gap between what an organization says it does and what it actually does. Amanda's journey shows us that sometimes, to see the truth, you have to stop looking at the handbook and start looking at the people. Let's analyze Amanda's case using the framework we've built today. First, what role did she adopt? She was a participant as observer. She was a known insider. Everyone knew she was the HR manager, and she was transparent about her dual role as a researcher. This transparency was crucial for ethics, but it brought challenges. The biggest challenge was role conflict. How do you stay objective as a researcher when you have responsibilities as a manager? There was also a risk of observer bias. As an HR professional, she might have been looking for specific problems. Then there were the time constraints. Imagine trying to record detailed field notes while also fulfilling your normal, busy HR duties. So, how did she reduce bias? She was very smart about it. First, she kept a reflective diary where she strictly separated factual notes from her personal interpretations. Second, she used triangulation. She didn't just rely on her notes. She compared her observations with staff surveys and actual HR records. Third, she sought feedback from an outside mentor to check if her interpretations were accurate. And finally, she ensured informed consent. By being open and honest with her colleagues, she maintained trust. Amanda's approach shows us that while observation has challenges, they can be managed through a rigorous, transparent process. Her study revealed a clear gap between policy and experience, providing the firm with the evidence they needed to actually fix their culture. This is the ultimate goal of business research, using data to drive meaningful, positive change. As we wrap up our 18 minutes together, let's look at the key takeaways for your exams and your future careers. Remember, observation is more than just looking. It is the systematic viewing of the world to collect data. Know the difference between participant observation, qualitative, deep meaning, and structured observation, quantitative, counting frequencies. Be prepared to explain the four roles from Figure 9.1, the complete participant, the complete observer, the observer as participant, and the participant as observer, and the ethical trade-offs of each. Always keep the threats to data quality in mind: error, bias, and the observer effect. These are the hurdles you must jump to ensure your research is valid. Ethics are non-negotiable. Informed consent and confidentiality are the foundation of your professional integrity. And finally, my final thought for you: never rely on just one method. Compare your observations with interviews or other data sources to reduce bias and build a stronger case. As MBA students, your value lies in your ability to see what others miss. Observation gives you that extra vision. Use it wisely, use it ethically, and use it to uncover the truths that will make you a better leader and a better researcher. Thank you for your time today, and I look forward to seeing how you apply these researchers' eyes in your own professional worlds.